Hello and welcome. My name is Errity and this is Wise Woman Television. Today I am bringing you a pick a card reading on the gifts your mother gave you. Wisdom gained and lessons learned. And of course we can learn through contrast too. So if what I'm sharing doesn't line up with your experience, it means you might have learned it or will learn it through contrast. Because they did it, you won't. So we will be doing that today and getting started in just a moment. I want to first welcome you to being here, to being a part of this family and community. If you find you enjoy today's reading, I encourage you to like, to subscribe. You can press the bell icon to get ongoing notifications. I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. I have an incredible program out right now called Spirit Woman. It's a community to nurture your true nature and highest potential for a full year. You can check out those details below or at my website, erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. So we will go ahead and get started. I will place a picture up of your 3 card piles to choose from now. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I think these will be just a little bit shorter than my usual readings. I'm on a little bit of a tighter schedule today, but I did want to do one for you. So the first, your card pile 1 here is your mother has taught you to walk away from things that do not serve you. So your mother was either someone who was really good about that and, knew how to use her sword, right? Queen of Swords, and just cut things out. But this can also be a mother who was very codependent and kept people and things in her life that really did not serve her, that took advantage of her, that exploited her. And then you saw it for what it was, and knew that this is not something you wanted to carry on into the future. I do believe as a result of the experience that you had or the relationship that you had with your mother, again, whether she was present, absent, this could be through contrast or because she was present and sharing an explicit lesson with you, you were able to learn to sort of break familial and generational cycles. You are not going to continue with the patterns of the past. You are not going to continue with patterns of relationships that don't support you, that don't serve you, that have your highest good in mind. You certainly weren't going to be harmed, exploited, abused, or engage in toxic patterns, dynamics, or anything of the sort. Abuse is going to be something that you would never perpetuate, whether in your own life, in terms of your own experience, or even your children, if you have children or will have children, or find yourself in a family at some point in your life. So it seems like, though, for many of you, and I'm sharing this because I'm seeing it, although we can learn both ways, it seems like most people in card pile 1, at least 50% of you, had a mom who kept those around who didn't serve her. So she was in a situation of toxic and unhealthy dynamics and relationships, people who didn't honor her or her needs, people who exploited her, took advantage of her, people who maybe even abused her or harmed her in some way. For some of you, I even feel like substance abuse or maybe even toxic or abusive kinds of situations like that, and not for all of you, right? So you do have to apply this to your situation, but if something comes up, I share it because it means that for somebody it's true. But generally speaking, those are the kinds of patterns that I'm seeing where while she kept those kinds of people close and those kinds of things close and maintained people and places and things in her life that really did not serve her or her highest good or what she wanted for herself, you have chosen to walk away from that. And it's like, nuh-uh, I am not doing that. Now, there might have been a time where you face some of those same old patterns, but you ultimately chose or made a different choice. If you haven't and you're there, this would be the reading to confirm that would be your next most aligned move. But this is the gifts that your mother gave you. So what else? Yeah, she taught you to be your authentic self, to be true to you ultimately. Again, I'm getting that. I'm feeling like for many of you, not all of you, but for many of you, you had a more codependent mother who was likely just playing a role, going through the motions, meeting other people's needs, but also in a lot of ways was very needy or clingy herself. And so instead of really getting to know her, maybe you really are mostly connected with her small self, the part of her that really just needed approval or attention, or the part of her that, maybe just had children to feel loved or to complete a part of herself. But in some way there was some kind of mask, some kind of codependency, some kind of insecurity, some neediness or something like that perpetuated a lot of your mom's relationships. And again, if this doesn't land for you, but you did choose this card pile, the gift of authenticity remains the same. But for many of you, this was the situation. So you have realized that you prefer relationships, again, that honor you and your wholeness and your sovereignty, where you aren't just playing a role or meeting the needs of others, where you are, first of all, you get to honor you, but also people are in relationship with you, not just to take from you and to get a need met, but because they want to be in relationship with you. There's an at least a give and take, if not an equal give and take, a natural exchange in your relationships. So let me see if there's anything else that wants to be said here for this one. Yeah, so that you can honor yourself as a whole person. Again, you're not just playing out certain roles or playing out certain dynamics or whatever because it was passed on to you and you didn't know any better, or because you felt like that was the only way to get love or to be approved of, or to engage in certain things just to keep them around, or again, more to codependency so that you could feel a sense of completion. You're really available to becoming your own whole sovereign person, your own whole sovereign woman. And if I say woman, it's because that's who I tend to work with and also how I identify. But of course, my readings are not gender specific. They're also timeless. So you have to apply it to your circumstances, but they more than likely taught you to be truer to yourself, to your authentic self. Yeah. So ultimately, they taught you to honor yourself, your own needs, your own wisdom, your own choice, your own desires, to learn to say no, right? This is what we're getting for the ultimate, to be your true self, your higher self, to honor yourself is really what it is, to honor yourself. You honor your own sovereignty. Okay, you're worthy just on your own, and to learn to say no. So you learn to put up boundaries and to be able to say no to people, and to make sure you use discernment with the people that you keep around. And if people, fool you once, you're the fool you twice, I'm the fool. You've learned that if people fool you, twice, maybe not always twice, maybe a couple times more, but you're pretty clear at that point. If there's a red flag that it's not for you. If they're not serving you, it's not for you. You've been able to learn that. Now, I do find that some of you might have, the pendulum might have swung all the way to the other side, in which case you became sort of rigid and had ironclad boundaries and maybe frozen, and you found that, okay, maybe that wasn't working for you too. Of course, there is a natural give and take that happens in relationships. Vulnerability, availability, willingness, vulnerability. Did I already say that? I think I might have. But those things are required for relationship too. So you might have found that, wow, maybe I am a little too hard or a little too firm or a little too rigid, and you had to sort of pull yourself back and find that balance within yourself that wasn't overcompensating from your mom, right? Because if we are to, the conditioned self can take many forms, but one of them is just being an exact replica of your parent. That means, in this case, it would be just playing out those old codependent patterns. But the conditioned self is also the version of you that totally overcompensates for the mistakes of your quote-unquote parent, right? Ultimately, they're the gifts, though. Spiritually, there really are no mistakes. Now, there are some things as a human I'm not able to understand or comprehend. I can't justify certain horrific things that happen on this planet and say that it's all gravy. Oh, it meant to happen. But what I'm saying for here is these are the gifts your mother was intended to impart for you, okay? At the soul level, at the spiritual level, at the agreement that you made. And so, whether we become an exact replica of our parent, that's not usually what we're meant to become. We're meant to evolve in some way, expand in some way, but we're also not usually meant to completely overcompensate, become the exact opposite, and just like go way overboard, right? Ironclad, rigid boundaries, Fort Knox, no one could get in. Well, that's not it either, right? It's finding that balance. So ultimately, really the healing gift from your mother, then wisdom gained, lessons learned, is to become that authentic self that is true to your own needs, true to your own higher outcomes, higher potential, what it is you ultimately want for yourself, but still available for relationship, still available for intimacy, for connection, for belonging, for vulnerability. All right. So that's your short reading today, card pile 1. These are the gifts from your mother. If this reading landed for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, press the bell icon to get ongoing notifications if you so desire. I do have a profound program out right now. It's called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long community to nurture your true nature and highest potential. You can check out those details below at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 1. Okay, card pile 2, gifts from your mother. So this might be a little bit shorter of a reading today, but I did want to make sure I get to it. Just wanted to give you a heads up. And I also want to remind you that we can learn from our parents by what they do and deliver to us directly, or what they teach us, but more often than not, or at least half the time, we're learning from contrast, right? We do the opposite of what they learned. So let's go ahead and dive in case that you find that, what I say, you're like, well, that doesn't match up. It can very much be we learn through the opposite, through contrast. Okay, so let's see what we're getting here. Okay, so I am feeling some kind of feminine lineage healing, mother wound healing, sort of clearing up and cleaning up the relationship between the women in your family, between grandmother and mother, between mother and daughter, between grandmother and grandchild, but definitely cleaning up those feminine relations, or the feminine lineage between mother-daughter, especially daughter-mother, maybe even between aunts and sisters, and so on and so forth. There is something here. We're going to get more deeply into that, but that's the very first thing that's coming up for me. We'll see how else this goes from here. But one of the gifts your mother gave you was to love yourself. And so I feel like many of you already off the bat, because I'm feeling that energy, that many of you had a mother who didn't love herself. She might not have considered herself worthy. She might not have considered herself deserving. She might have had low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-image. One way or another, she might have been very insecure and always seeking approval and always seeking to be loved, and maybe even needy or codependent or clingy as a result. Not all of you. For some of you, I'm feeling like you had a very strong and firm foundation of self-love that you were able to see in your mother, but I feel like in some ways it might have been overboard in terms of even becoming more almost too strong. I don't like ever saying that we can be too any one thing, but obviously too much of any one thing is usually not a good thing. It can be imbalanced, but she might have been too firm in some ways, maybe even harsh, maybe even punishing. Like she was so self-loving, but to the point of maybe narcissism. So let this land how it lands and resonates for you. But your mother ultimately, whether through contrast or through direct teaching, was supporting you to love yourself, was supporting you to answer the call of your soul, which is that ultimately you are worthy no matter what, that you are deserving no matter what, that you don't have to rely on other people's approval to feel loved, and that you don't have to go seeking out that kind of love and approval through even toxic or harmful, abusive, exploitative relationships, but instead to create relationships, to create a life that honors you. Actually, that's what it is. You learned to honor yourself, card pile 2. Through whatever it is you learned through your mother, you learned to honor yourself. But I am getting there's an edge there to where it didn't, doesn't become unhealthy, dysfunctional, toxic, hostile, or even narcissistic, but to just truly love and honor yourself. That's what I'm getting for card pile 2. We'll see what else comes up here. There's something here, though, about the feminine lineage as well. We're going to get into more of that, but also like the inner child. So some of you may have learned to honor your inner child or heal your inner child through your relationship with your mother. Again, I'm feeling like this could have something to do with the mother wound. So you might find that things that you're not able to have deepened connections with other women, other friends, sisters, aunts, your own mother. You're wondering sort of why, why is it that way? Or maybe it's very clear to you why you don't have a strong, fulfilling, and loving relationship with your mother. But one reason or another, it sort of brings you to this space or to this healing phase on your journey where you start looking back to that inner child in you that might have wanted more from her mother, more that her mother could not give because her mother too was hurting / wounded / had a wounded inner child that she hadn't tended to. And so because she didn't honor herself, ultimately, it might have appeared that way in a lot of ways, because I think some of you, your mothers were very like, taking from you kind of thing, very needy, codependent, but they were ultimately filling a void. They were never actually able to secure a strong foundation of self-love, of self-honoring for themselves because they didn't feel worthy, they didn't feel deserving. But again, that was likely from their relationship with their parents, whether or not it was the mother alone. But I feel like there's some deep need for healing, for soul healing, for just this beautiful deep healing for the relationships that happened between women and your family, as well as this inner child healing. So overall, it's this deep honoring, this deep self-love, this deep clearing and healing of that lineage, of the maternal line, as well as inner child healing. Because if we start looking at it and connecting the dots here, because it's kind of all scattered right now, for me it is, at least when I'm kind of catching on to the energy, but it feels like we have that wounded inner child that needs aren't met, and never got what it needed from its mom, so it develops this thing called the mother wound, and then sort of plays that out in a lot of different relationships, and then is unable to maybe connect with other women or connect deeply with other women, is unable to be as intimate or, you know, connected in that way, but including its own mother. And so everything ultimately connects, right? The inner child also doesn't feel worthy, doesn't feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and so it sort of becomes this bigger thing that affects all these relationships and dynamics within the family. But there is a call here for greater healing, and with this maternal lineage healing, with this healing of the maternal line, with this self-love and self-honoring and the healing work that you do with your inner child and the mother wound, you're ultimately freeing yourself in some way to support the healing of your ancestry, the healing of your lineage. I also feel like in some way it's going to support your soul mission or soul purpose. It might very well be one of the reasons that you incarnated was as part of your mission, as part of your path, as part of your purpose. It was to sort of support the healing of this maternal line, support the healing of the feminine and your family and your relationships and these dynamics, even with your own mother. And it was going to come through that inner child healing, tending to your inner child, developing that greater self-worth, that greater self-honoring, so you could stand on your own 2 feet, so you could meet your own needs, support yourself, to honor yourself, whatever those needs and desires are, and sort of build that healthy sense of self that's then also able to deepen and connect with other. And first of all, it could be all of your relationships, but it very much could be the feminine or maternal line in your family or lineage. Okay, so let's see what else here we have. Inner life. Your inner life is a garden to be cultivated. Again, I'm getting just the healing again, recognizing what's triggering you. I feel like in this reading, it's all about, again, connecting to the inner child. You're going to be well aware of what your inner child needs through your triggers. So if things are coming up, especially when it comes to your mother, if things are coming up, especially when it comes to the maternal line or women in your life or in your family, that's where you need to start looking. Although I think in general, your trigger should be bring you right to the inner child, right to what it needs, right to what it never got from mom, and so that you can go in there, do that self-parenting, because mom can no longer do that for you, but you can. So what you're supposed to bring forward is that inner self-parenting, the inner self-healing, the inner child healing that ultimately clears up that mother wound, that ultimately clears up that relationship with your mother, that ultimately heals the maternal lineage, heals the ancestors, and supports this greater purpose and soul mission that you came here to accomplish. Not only is this going to free you in terms of your own inner experience and your ability to connect more deeply in general, but also to have deeper connections and relationships with other women, and also your own feminine energy, vulnerability, sensitivity, allowing, nurturing some of those qualities or aspects that you might not have fully been available for, and or completely on the other side where you are just too available, too sensitive, you have no boundaries, right? You become codependent, you wallow, all that stuff. So you're finding that, you know, perhaps we tend to see like a middle ground that happens. But for card pile 2, as the gifts from your mother, whether they came through direct teaching or embodiment, or if they came through contrast, which we often do learn through the opposites, you know, you're learning to tend to your inner child, to actually honor what your inner child needs and wants, to hear her, to honor her, to develop a sense of self-worth, self-love, and self-honoring. Through that, you're going to be able to then heal your ancestry. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be able to heal your relationship with your mother if that's what you're seeking, or heal your relationship with all of your female identified family members, but it means that the availability is there. The possibility becomes real, like that becomes a very real possibility as a result, but it comes to your own nurturing of your inner child, and your own owningness of your own worth. That self-love, that self-honoring. So that's your reading, card pile 2. If that lands for you, if that resonates for you, I encourage you to share below. You can also like, subscribe, click on the bell icon. That way you get the notifications when these videos pop up. I do have a program out right now. It's called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 2. Okay, card pile 3. The gifts your mother gave you. So these can be through either she embodied this or taught you directly, but more often than not, humans learn through contrast. So we're learning through the opposite. So what I share might not land because you're like, well, my mom wasn't like that at all. You're supposed to be the cycle breaker. This is supposed to be the alchemy. You're supposed to do the different thing. So I just like sharing that right off the bat. Okay, so I feel like there's something here right off the bat about, first of all, many of you might have had many female siblings. That's not going to be the case, obviously, for all of you, but that's one of the first things that's popping up. So I do want to share that. I feel like you might have had a large family, lots of sisters, lots of siblings. Doesn't have to be the case. But what I am first seeing here is I am believing or seeing or feeling it has something to do with following your heart's desires, being true to you, being true to what you want, following your dreams, not giving up on your dreams, believing in yourself, seeing it through, following it all the way through, and bringing about what it is that you ultimately want for yourself at the deepest level. Now, again, for those of you, and this is coming up, so I'm only sharing it, for those that this matches or lands for, you have to take the details and match them to your own circumstances. But I feel like for some of you, because I did get that big family or lots of siblings card or energy from the card, that your mom might have been so caught up in motherhood and taking care of her big family that she had to shelve her dreams and was never able to follow her dreams. And so you were given the gift to be able to do that. And you sort of took the torch, she passed it off to you, and then you are now going to be the one to follow your dreams. I'm feeling like this might be the case for many of the women in your family, the maternal lineage, that they did not follow their dreams, that they gave up on their dreams. They instead sort of did what they had to do in terms of husband or the children or family or household. They had to attend to their duties as a wife, as a mother. And so they took that on and shelved their dreams. And then now, of course, the gift, though, for you is following your dreams, following your heart's desires. That's the alchemy here. That's the healing that's possible, the potential that's available. Instead of sort of doing it the old way and the way that's been done in your family for looks like or feels like generations of time, you are going to be the one that takes the torch. They kept passing it off to each generation. Maybe she'll do it. Maybe she'll do it. Maybe she'll do it. Obviously, this time around, the social conditions were ripe to support you to be able to step into a fuller expression, a greater potential. Ultimately, though, this frees a lot of your ancestors in a lot of ways, that they're celebrating you. They're celebrating that you have the chance to do this now, and also that you're able to do this now, that you will do this now, and that it's actually doing something for them too, all the way up the line. Is this very gleeful celebration of like, she's doing it. Now, I am speaking to a lot of she's today. My readings are never gender specific. They're also always timeless. You have to connect it to your circumstance. A lot of the energy here is female/feminine. And I think it's because most of the people who will be watching will identify with that. And they'll be coming here because they're curious specifically about their mother. Not all of you are going to be that, but that's what, if these are coming through, sometimes I say it's because it's, how I identify with the world clearly, as I am a biological woman, but also I work with a lot of women, and in these readings I'm feeling tons of feminine energy. So I'm feeling like for most people it would be daughters seeking for readings on their mothers, but that might not be the case for you. Okay, yeah, so something else that you learned too was to become a warrior woman, baby. All right. So again, your mom was always having to play a role, fulfill a duty, meet an expectation, meet a need. She just didn't feel like she had the availability to be able to honor her own desires, to follow her own heart, to pursue her own dreams. So you decided to become the warrior woman because you knew that if you were unable to do that, that if you didn't sort of put on your armor, get your shield or your sword, and come up with really good, steadfast, and strong boundaries, that this would have never been able to happen. You knew that you were dealing with a lot of, and soul level, you knew that you were dealing with a lot of sort of baggage from the past, of codependency, of women giving up their dreams and martyrdom, self-sacrifice, and you weren't going to have any of it. So you became more or less a stronger person, more sovereign, stronger boundaries, more awareness of self, stronger, healthy sense of ego, sense of self, to be able to accomplish what you needed to. In fact, you might find still at some point on your path that you feel sort of impeded or held back or held down by a role like wife, or a role like mother, or a role that you have to take in your life that holds you back. Again, I'm getting emotional for some of you, and I also connect with this one, so it's also personal for me too this time. Usually I'm just crying for you guys, but I relate to this one. Where you actually feel held down by these roles at times, or you feel held down by having to play the role of woman or housekeeper or homemaker, because at some level you feel like it's taking from what you need to do and for your mission and for your purpose and what you're here to create, and you're following these dreams, and yet, you know, it can feel like these roles kind of hold you back, or these duties or responsibilities hold you back. And that's because of what you saw as a child, where, you know, your mother had given everything up. She gave everything up. She sacrificed herself completely. And you did not want that for yourself. You wanted to be able to pursue your dreams. And here's the thing, spiritually, soul level, this is what you were here to do. Again, she was meant to pass the torch for you, to you. You were meant to carry this on and to actually fulfill your greater legacy. And it does some kind of liberation for all the women up the line in the family, and also at some level does some work for the feminine in general, collectively, globally, spiritually, that kind of thing for humanity. But you had to become the warrior woman to do the work that was going to be required to bring all of this to fruition. It required saying no to a lot of stuff on your path. It required you saying no to people asking you for favors, no to people needing you, no to even maybe some relationships, no to a lot of things, no to even distractions, no to even sort of like maybe some of the things that some people do in their lives. You know, they get lost in the party phase, or they kind of go off to college and forget themselves, or, you know, all the kind of little things that we can kind of get lost on the path at different times that are sort of fun and indulgent, but they ultimately really don't do a whole lot for us spiritually or long term. And I feel like you weren't, you know, homegirl wasn't going to play with that. You know, she had work to do. Okay. So you kind of got yourself very mission focused, mission oriented, and purpose driven, in order to sort of keep you on the path to do what you came here to do. You weren't going to be swayed. You weren't going to be detoured. You were not going to be distracted. You came here to fulfill this mission. You knew it. And part of your work, though, is not just fulfilling your own mission, like just for like a spiritual purpose. It's doing something for your family, for your feminine line, for your maternal lineage. There's something here about freeing every single person up the line who never was able to fulfill their own dreams, who was never able to fulfill their own desires. And you came here to sort of break that cycle, clear that energy out, and make it possible for people to continue to fulfill their dreams and manifest their greater desires. So let's get into this. Yeah. So a lot of you then step into your role of, it says priestess, mystic, teacher. And I also feel it's a sisterhood of the rose. So I'm also feeling like communing with women, communities of women, servicing and supporting women, helping women, guiding women in some way, but stepping into the role of teacher, priestess, mystic. You were meant to bring about a greater destiny and a greater mission and purpose. All right, I had to take a minute. You guys are meant to bring out a mission and purpose that was going to not only support you, but it was like a group, collective, family, lineage liberation, but it also supports the great divine feminine anyway. Look at this. It's the healing, the great liberation, the great alchemy. You came here to alchemize the family line of self-sacrifice, of martyrdom, of women having to shelve their dreams, shelve their desires, put everything on hold, put everything on pause, which tended to become an entire lifetime, and they were never able to be fully self-expressed. They were never even able to consider it, let alone be fully self-actualized. They had chosen a different life, a life of duty, responsibility to their families, to their loved ones, to their husbands, to their children, and you came here to do something different. And in fact, at times, like I said, you can feel held back by sort of some of these common roles, even if that's a part of your life. Even if it's not, you might be the person who's like, I'm not having kids. It's because of this. It's because you didn't want anything to hold you back. You don't want anything to hold you back. And you get nervous that you might sort of fall into those old patterns. And you kind of, will you kind of fall into the same old thing if you don't keep like your eyes on the prize and become this warrior woman and know what to say no to? But there is, of course, a message here to sort of relax into it, and that it's going to happen for you and you don't have to try so hard. And that this was always something that you were here to do. And maybe for a time it required that armor and required that warrior woman and required that strength and the ability to say no. But there's also this, of course, guiding message. And there always is, because it's never supposed to be on one side of the pendulum or other, right? We're supposed to, have some sort of middle ground or harmony with it all. And it's like there's still room to breathe and to relax and to settle into this mission, that it's not something that you sort of have to armor yourself up and force, that it can happen more naturally. And I also feel like, again, this is going to bring some healing to your family. Also bring in some more female-based or women-based relationships into your own experience. You might be servicing and supporting other women, and this was part of your purpose to come here, to play that role, and to also sort of defy the pattern of the past, defy the limitations of the past, and your family specifically, but also for women more generally. I do feel like there's one final message that wants to come through, so if you'll just give me a moment, I'll take a minute to meditate on that. All right, so the other message that I have for you, card pile 3, I had to sit with it for a moment and pull a couple of cards for you as well. But what's coming through is you don't want to become a martyr for any direction, right? You don't want to become a martyr for your family and for playing the role of wife and mother and all of that stuff like the previous generations did. But you also don't want to become a martyr to a cause, to something bigger than you that leaves you sort of out to dry or out in the dust. Martyrdom in general is not is the wound. So whether or not you're on the side of martyring for the family or martyring for a cause, either way, it's a martyr. You're not intended to self-sacrifice. You are intended to come here to break the cycle, to fulfill your purpose, but not to become a martyr. You're meant to also be true to yourself, your own desires. We got that in the very beginning. Whatever it is that you want, if it's that you want to be a mother, to have a family, to have children, if it's that you want to fulfill a purpose, be a priestess, mystic, teacher, you can do all of those things. You can do whatever it is that you want, but ultimately you're following your heart's desires, whichever way they go, without succumbing to martyrdom and giving up your soul, selling your soul for a role or selling your soul for a cause. Whichever way, that's not going to truly honor you and your heart's deepest desires. So getting real and close with your heart's desires so you can honor those and align with those, that's the freedom here. That's the ultimate healing. That's the greater liberation that wants to come from this card pile 3. If this reading landed for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe. Do click the bell icon so you get notifications when new videos pop up. I also want to let you know I have an incredible program out right now. It's called Spirit Woman. It's a coaching community to nurture your true nature and highest potential. You can check out those details below or go to my website, erritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 3.